Okay, let's get started. Okay, today we're going to be discussing personnel security. This makes up about 12% of the CPP exam. I'm going to tell you right now, I consider this the most important part of your security program. Personnel security is the bedrock. Okay? Personnel security's purpose and functions. Okay? The primary purpose is to ensure that an organization hires those candidates that are absolutely the best suited for the jobs. Okay? Your biggest threat for security failure is going to be the insider threat. If you don't believe me, take a look at Snowden. That guy had access that he took advantage of. So a careful vetting of new hires is extraordinarily important. Vulnerability losses caused by employees is measured in part by the character of the employees, their awareness of asset protection requirements, and their motivation to cooperate. So remember how we've always said that whenever you bring new hires in, they've got to be brought into the fold, into your security program. They've got to learn what their responsibilities are, what's expected of them, and their role in protecting the company. Okay? I threw a cartoon up there because it's just so timely. Okay. There are three major security processes utilized in providing total protection for an organization. At the very top is personnel security. It is the most important, followed by information security and physical security. Now, whenever we're taking the exam, guys, physical security takes up 25% of the exam. But physical security is absolutely useless. I don't care if you have the latest and greatest, you have a checkbook that is billions of dollars in depth, and you can spend it all on physical security. If the personnel aren't on board with it, or you hire the wrong people, it's useless. Of the three, personnel security is the most critical security process. Okay? Keep that in mind. You will see that again. Key functions of the personnel security process are screening. That includes application screenings, and we'll get into applications a little bit as we go further along in this. Looking at resumes, that's your first step. Followed by background investigations. That's their work history, references, financial. There are other things to look at on it. Now, part of the personnel security process is investigations of current employees suspected of being in violation of an organization's rules and regulations. And this is important because if they are breaking your rules and regulations, what else are they doing to your company? You want to look at it. And if you can get them back on track, you're good to go. If you're not, you need to start looking at easing them out and taking away their access to sensitive information. Also part of personnel security is security awareness and education. You have to train these people. A lot of people running around going, well, that's somebody else's job. It's not. It's everybody's job. A good security program brings everybody in. You get buy-in from everybody, from the janitor to the CEO. They have to be part of the security process. Okay, so that's where your educational programs come in. Remember we talked earlier about having a new hire orientation. You need to be dead involved in that. Every time there's a new employee orientation class, security programs must be pushed out to the new hires. Okay? Also, another function of personnel security is protection of employees from discriminatory practices. If something's going on and somebody's being harassed or anything of that nature, they have to have a safe place they can go to and report this. Usually it's HR, then security gets involved, okay? And you have to investigate this. You're trying to have a good, cohesive work environment, and part of the security program is to protect the employees and give them a good, safe place to work. Any questions on that? But you wonder why it's in personnel security, because we are protecting our personnel. No questions? Moving on. A comprehensive personnel security program should include the following elements. Okay? You need adequate job specifications which are documented in the form of a job description. We're going to be talking about this a little bit more. Job specifications provides information to determine the worth of a job. Okay, that's going to be salary range, benefit range, working conditions, everything. Okay, it also identifies the knowledge and skills required to do the job. Appropriate application screening procedures and standards. This is part of your security program here. And you should be involved in developing the application, the literal application. A well-constructed application form serves as a pre-screening tool. What do you want to look for? Okay. Also, part of your personnel security program, you need to have standards for your background investigations. Remember, we talked about investigations. What's the scope of the investigation? How far are we going to look? What are we looking for? Any investigation you do, background investigation, has to keep the scope limited to can they do the job. It has to be job specific. Otherwise, you're going to run afoul of certain labor laws. So be careful. We'll talk about those in a minute. And you also have to establish criteria for employee conduct and give them performance standards. And a performance standard is nothing more than what the results you expect from them when they complete an assignment or activity. Okay? If you don't tell them what's expected, you can't discipline them. Would everybody agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Okay? When we train people, and it's very important here. Now, I know this is geared towards security, so let's focus on security a minute. If you tell an employee you have to go through this door, go through the security screening process, and you have to report any suspicious activity, that's a standard you're setting. Okay? You have to get buy-in from them. You have to tell them what you expect from them. If they see somebody loading stuff into the back of a car from your warehouse, they have to know they have to report it. Okay? So you set the standards in advance. And seriously, folks, it has to be in writing, and they have to acknowledge it. Let me go back. Investigative processes for questionable work conduct. You have to develop your processes. And these need to be in writing too. Remember, we're concerned with investigations for the organization. We don't want to do an investigation that gets the organization sued or fined or anything like that. So we want to develop our processes that limits our scope to specific parts of an investigation. Okay? Investigative process for workplace conduct. You know, you've established these are the rules, the regulations. Okay? You have to train the employee. Okay? Let them know what the rules and regulations are and what the results of failure to obey or follow the rules and regulations could result in. Now, you want to do a step down or a step up in the disciplinary process here. You know, first time offense, you know, you're going to get talked to. Second time, you know, on down the line. You want to keep this in step. Display or corrective action procedures, progressive discipline. You need to write down the procedures for employee discharge. Okay? This is usually handled by the personnel or human resources department in an organization. However, you have input into that, okay? And you want to say, if this guy, you know, you need to call us if this guy is likely to go off so we can escort him out of the building and establish the procedures for that. A comprehensive personnel security program must be non-discriminative and in accordance with federal and state employment laws. We're going to talk about those here in a few minutes. Let's talk about job analysis and job description. Ta-da! Prior to an organization engaging in the recruitment of employees, the organization must define the job specifications. The key tools in this process are the job analysis and the job description. I think we talked a little bit about job analysis. We need to go out and find out what the skill sets are, the education level, what we should be paying for these skills, this education level, and things like that. And what is exactly expected of them? If we're doing a job analysis for a carpenter, we don't want to hire a plumber, okay? Once we've done the job analysis, we now have a job description. Let's look at this. Job analysis. It covers such things as the relationship of the job with other jobs in the organization. This guy is here. Who does he report to? Who does he take instructions from? And who does he give the results of his work to? Okay? It also describes personal qualifications necessary to perform the job. Oh, yeah. And we better tell them they're going to be working outside, inside, they're going to be working on a factory floor, or they're going to be working in an office. And we're going to have to develop the specific requirements for the location. Okay? If we have a job that requires extensive walking, you know, you're going to walk the perimeter fence line. We're hiring a security guard. So shouldn't the guy be able to walk? So the conditions under which the task is performed. Job descriptions. This is an direct output from your job analysis, okay? It'll generate a written job description, and it's prepared for a position within your organization. The key elements of this is the general purpose of the job, duties and responsibilities, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and education or training. You don't want to hire an MBA to go out there and run a factory machine, okay? We're going to get into education requirements here probably Friday. So we'll talk about that. Where am I at? I forgot to put page numbers on that. I apologize. Job descriptions can be used for recruiting and screening. Okay. Nowadays we have automated processes that look at resumes or applications that come in, and they're looking for keywords or phrases, and it'll spit out those that have the most. Okay. It kind of pre-screens it, but somebody still has to sit down and look at the application once it's been spit out. Okay. Make sure that they have a security clearance if the job requires a security clearance. Make sure they have that MBA if you're looking for an MBA. Now, the job description can also help you design tests that's related to the job. If you're hiring a welder, you want to bring the welder in or the applicant in and see if it can actually weld what needs to be welded. Okay, that's a test. It's an application test. We'll be going into testing a little bit more depth later on. It leads to hiring and placement in the organization once you've selected a good candidate. Okay, he has the skill sets, he has the knowledge, he has the education, and he has the experience. And he's a good fit in the organization. Remember earlier when we were talking about hiring people, we have to make sure they're going to fit with the team. They're not going to be disruptive. They're not going to go off on their own. So, ta-da. And in the job description, there's going to be some orientation, you know, who you're reporting to, what you're expected to do. Remember, we talked about that just a few minutes ago. And it'll also help you develop processes for future job applications, how we're going to do it. And then training and development. That one is fairly important, training and development. We're bringing somebody in that worked for XYZ Corporation, and they're going to work for Acme here. We have different processes. We have different ways of doing things. Even though he's an experienced plumber over here, we're hiring him as a plumber over here, he has to know where to go to get his resources, his tools, how he reports a job open, closed, things like that. So he's got to be trainable to our processes. See how that's going? And why is it under the security department? Because if he violates it, who's going to be investigating? Ta-da! Now, applicant screening. First line of defense. Applicant screening verifies accuracy and completeness of applicants' statements and develops additional relevant information. Okay, if he says, I went to MIT, we want to check that, right? Ta-da! Key to an effective personal security program is to endeavor to screen out candidates who might pose a risk to the organization. I think that's a smart idea, don't y'all? Yeah. Okay, I can hear you nodding. It's okay. You need to look for deliberate misstatements or material omissions in any segment of the process and should be considered major disqualifying features. Now, if they have an employment gap that they don't cover for 3 to 5 years, what are we looking for? They've been overseas, right? Okay. All relevance of the candidate's background are weighed using the whole man rule, which gives consideration to the totality of the person. Okay. If this guy is technically qualified, he has the skill sets, and he has the education, but he's lacking in the experience, but he's equivalent to all the other candidates because they're all missing a little bit, we should look at the whole man and hire according to that. We can't disqualify him just because of one thing. Okay, and we really can't disqualify him for something that will get us in trouble with the federal government, such as gender, age, race, religion. Okay, look at the whole man. Can he do the job? All right. You need to establish governing standards that meet the needs of both the organization and show fairness to every applicant. Okay, they must be fairly considered. What we're trying to do here is to keep from running afoul of certain labor relations acts, okay, labor laws, both federal and state, okay. So you need to be fair and across the board. And if you do have a rejection for an applicant, it must be based on the standards which have been clearly defined. You have to adhere to them at all times. You can't just say, well, I'm going to break the rules for this guy because I really like him, he had a nice smile, whatever. You can't do that. If he's disqualified based on your standards, he's disqualified. You need to review these standards on a regular basis to ensure legal compliance. Now, later on, we'll find that anybody that has an employment gap of 30 days or more, you really want to dig into that. Well, in today's economy, 30 days ain't nothing because there's still people 3 years looking for work, okay? So we need to update our standards accordingly, okay? Yeah, let's see. We finally get to the federal laws. Under federal law, there are certain criteria relating to the types of questions the candidate for employment may be asked. The following federal laws, learn these, are the ones that prohibit employment discrimination. Now, the Civil Rights Act prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Age Discrimination Employment Act of 1967 protects individuals who are 40 years of age or older. Now, this really only applies to organizations with 20 or more employees. Small businesses, it's kind of hard, but I'm sure they would get looked at if they discriminated based on age. We have the American Disabilities Act of 1990, prohibits employment discrimination against qualified individuals with disabilities. Let's talk about this one a little bit, because remember I said we were hiring a security guard that has to walk the perimeter? What if the guy is in the wheelchair? Can we discriminate based on that? Or is it a discrimination?
It wouldn't be a discrimination because he's not able to complete the elements of the job. It just means he couldn't do that component of the job, but he could work in the office.
That's good. Or, and what you're talking about is accommodation. Now the organization, if it were possible, let's say he has a motorized scooter that he can get around at the same pace as somebody walking the perimeter, and there is access to that perimeter for that motorized scooter, then we could probably accommodate him. Not saying that's a good example, but it's something to think about. Accommodations can be made under the American Disabilities Act if it's possible. If your company can do it, then you're kind of required to make those accommodations. So keep that in mind. Equal Pay Act of 1963 protects men and women from performing essentially equal work in the same establishment from sexual-based wage discrimination. I don't know about y'all, but I keep seeing where there's still gender inequality in wages. So this is an enforceable act. It's just kind of hard to prove, okay? The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, enforces all these laws above, okay? Now keep in mind, the EEOC is federal, and almost every state has their own version of the EEOC. So not only must you be compliant with federal laws, wherever you're at, you need to look at the state requirements. They have additional requirements you need to be familiar with whenever you're putting your personnel security program together. Make sure you're in compliance and non-discriminatory, and you've got your standards written down. You update those standards at least annually. I know you guys are tired of hearing me say annually, but seriously, when you're doing your emergency plans review, let's look at the standards. Whenever we do our training, we need to look at it annually. Okay, and that may not be enough. Okay, we're going to get a little bit into applicant screening here, and we will pick it up on Friday for more details. But I wanted to give you all a taste. Focal issues in the screening process, things to look for. Signs of instability in job or career. This is somebody that hops from job to job to job. It's like a frog in a lily pond that's just full of lily pads, okay? The guy kind of indicates the guy doesn't fit in anywhere and may be a disqualifier, okay? Can we get away with that? Look at the laws. Oh, we'll go back up. Can we get away with this?
Yes.
Absolutely. Whew. Thought that was a hard question. Okay, instability in a career tends to indicate this guy does not, or gal does not fit. I don't want to discriminate. Men and women can both be job hoppers. Okay, and you want to look at, you might want to dig a little bit in there. Okay. Candidate is under or overqualified for position. Okay, we see this a lot. Somebody's underqualified, that's a no-brainer. But overqualified, why are they applying down the slope? And it goes hand in hand with a declining salary history. If they're taking less paying jobs, what does that tell you?
Well, but some of these are not automatically disqualifiers. I mean, somebody might want to just have a, simplified, different quality of life, and doesn't have the same salary requirements anymore too.
Absolutely, but these are things to look for so that you can dig in more detail, especially whenever you're doing your background checks. Okay, why did you give up $500,000 and you come down to $100,000? And his answer is just like what we just got. Okay, or he just says, oh, it was time to leave that company. You might want to dig in a little bit further. If they don't have any references from former supervisors, ask them why. It's a good question. If they have gaps in residency or unexplained moves, one step ahead of the law, you might want to dig into that. These are just indicators that you want to hang at whenever you do your background investigation. And finally, inadequate or no personal references. Okay. Why is that important?
It denotes who that person is inside of a social context, because you have persons inside of both community as well as employment will give you that whole picture of a person. So you really want to have a balance.
Absolutely. If they don't, and the other thing is, if it's inadequate or no personal references whatsoever, this kind of indicates the person's a loner, and there may be issues with that, or they just didn't put any on their application. I don't know. They didn't come prepared. So these are things you need to ask about. They're not disqualifiers, okay? But they are leads for your background investigation. Okay, I made a mistake on Friday trying to cram too many slides into one day, so I backed off a little bit, and we're going to be averaging about 14, 16 slides from here on out. Try to keep it manageable. We're going to be going into the little bit more detail in the screening process and background investigations in the next section starting Friday. Give you something to think about. The thing I want you to carry away from today is personnel security is probably the most critical part of your security program. Absolutely the most. The other thing is, whenever you're dealing with hiring people, you've got to understand the labor laws and your EEOC requirements. Okay? The third thing you have to take away from you is the most damaging person to your organization is somebody that is inside your organization. You want to be very careful in your screening process. Make sure you've got the right person for the job, and then take care of that person so that they are not doing this. Okay? You want them loyal, so you take care of them. The final thing is you make sure you get their buy-in as being an essential part of your security program. They have to know what's required of them. They have to know who to report to if they see something suspicious. And then, you know, you want to do security training so they know what is supposed to look suspicious. Does everybody agree with that? Okay, are there any questions on today's material?
No, sir.
Okay, oh, I like that. All right, I should have your spreadsheets out to you Monday. Those that turned them in, I do appreciate it. I'm still trying to score all of them. I mean, everybody passed. Okay, you can't fail my course. Okay, so everybody passed. And I'm still working an IT issue to get you all access to a website where I'm putting these presentations that we're recording. So as soon as I get that done, Stefan's going to put that information out and go, yay. So if y'all can do me a favor and make sure that Stefan has everybody's email address, I'm going to get a spreadsheet from Stefan with everybody's email address on it, so maybe I can expedite your being able to log in once I get that sorted out.
I can send you a list of email addresses for the people that are attending.
That would be awesome. If you can put it in a spreadsheet, I can get Rob to upload that directly.
Okay.
All right. If there are no further questions, I do appreciate your time and patience with me today. I was thinking about going crazy, but now I'm too busy. So you all have a great day. We'll see you all on Friday. And bring your notepads.